We start off with the latest from Sri Lanka, where polling has concluded in the country's parliamentary elections. The polls were held under strict health guidelines on account of the COVID-19 pandemic. Voting began at around 7 a.m. local time. There were limits on the number of voters permitted inside the polling booths, and poll workers were equipped with sanitizers and PPE kits. Both President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa cast their votes at their respective polling stations. The elections are widely expected to extend the clout of the Rajapaksa clan in the island nation. The Rajapaksas are known for their hawkish attitude towards the West and for cozying up to Beijing. The Sri Lanka Porajana Peramona, or the SLPP, led by the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, is widely expected to obtain a simple majority. The party has the backing of Sri Lanka's Sinhala Buddhist majority and has been campaigning with nationalistic fervour. The SLPP's only viable challenge coming from the Samagi Janabala Vigaya, or the SJB. It is led by the leader of opposition, Sajith Premadasa, and is composed of breakaways from Sri Lanka's oldest party, the United National Party. The SJB has made a right-of-centre pitch during campaigning and has focused on rural areas and poverty alleviation. It has also promised to not sell off state assets, a clear retort to SLPP's pro-China stance. So the voters get to choose between the pro-China SLPP and the China-skeptic SJB. A look at the numbers. There are 225 seats in Sri Lanka's parliament, which is modelled on the British parliamentary system. The party or coalition that secures a simple majority of 113 seats will form Sri Lanka's next government. In the 2015 parliamentary election, no single party was able to secure a majority. The Rajapaksas are unlikely to be satisfied with a simple majority. The SLPP wants to amend the constitution and expand the presidential powers, which requires a two-third majority or a super majority of 150 seats out of the 225. This proposed constitutional amendment has led to rights groups raising a series of red flags. It aims to remove presidential term limits and bring the police, judiciary and the election body under the president's authority. This is South Asia's first major election since the pandemic struck, and so President Rajapaksa's handling of the outbreak remains a key issue. As always, the issue of Tamil reconciliation will be a major factor as well for the country's largest minority group. Now, India is keeping a close eye on the strategically important Sri Lankan elections. The polls are expected to strengthen President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's grip on power. While the Rajapaksas' tilt towards China cannot be ignored, Gotabaya had promised to protect India's interests from labour unions. But now he is reviewing the agreement for India to develop the East Container Terminal. Last month, India finalized a 400 million currency swap with Colombo to counter the substantial Chinese outreach to Sri Lanka. For several years now, India has been pressing Sri Lanka to implement the 13th Amendment that devolves the powers to the Tamil majority northern and eastern provinces of Sri Lanka. If the Rajapaksas return to power, the spectre of a hardline regime waits on India's doorstep, with uncomfortably close ties with an outright authoritarian China. Director, India Sri Lanka Foundation, Ambassador G. Parthasarathy is now live with us from New Delhi. Welcome, Ambassador. Good to have you as always. The elections were postponed twice due to COVID-19. The figures telling us the pandemic has not impacted the voter turnout to that great an extent. So that's one takeaway. Your thoughts on that? And also the issue of national security dominating the discourse. Fighting terror has been a shared struggle of both India and Sri Lanka. With the elections widely expected to extend the clout of the Rajapaksa clan, what would that scenario mean for the India-Sri Lanka relationship, particularly when it comes to anti-terror cooperation?
Well, let me go first to the elections, the 70% turnout. I think we as Indians should be delighted that whereas we have authoritarian regimes run by the army like in our western neighborhood, or you have other problems, here you have a remarkable example of a functioning democracy with a very good performance on COVID. and 70% of the electorate turning out amidst the virus problem. And therefore, really tribute to the organization and also the commitment of the people of Sri Lanka to democracy. Of that, every Indian has to be very happy. We will see all indications suggest a large majority for the Rajapaksas, amongst other reasons because the United National Party, which has also been very friendly to India, it was after all President Jayawardene's party, right of center, sort of almost falling apart. And the responsibility for the major opposition now coming on Sajith Premadasa. I think he will do well, perhaps even in Tamil areas. So, yes, but it does seem like the Rajapaksas coming in. Now, on the Rajapakshas coming in, the real problem arose because of the Tamil diaspora in the West, notably the United States, Canada, UK and Australia, running a very strong campaign against Mr. Rajapaksa. Yes, there were human rights violations, but I think the West went a bit too overboard. So you have India and Japan engaging as Asian powers, engaging them. I think we should work to see that nobody tries to isolate them and that continue with development assistance. As long as we do that, it's okay. Coming to China, yes, there has been a distinct movement towards China by the Rajapaksa government. But the question we should ask ourselves is, do they have alternatives? And I think there's one thing we should make it very clear. You refer to the Colombo East Terminal. I think the Rajapaksha government should be left in no doubt that how it responds to India and Japan's readiness to cooperate will play an important role in our molding our policies. So it is going to be an interesting period of diplomacy. We've had in recent months good contacts with both the President and the Prime Minister, both the Rajapaksha brothers. And therefore for us, as I said, yes, Sri Lanka should have a right to have a wide range of options. But we do not want Chinese nuclear submarines landing up in Colombo port. That would worry. And also they saw that in the case of Hambantota, with the Chinese, they ran into a deep debt trap. They couldn't repay. And there were serious concerns that the Chinese would use it as a base. So I'm sure the Sri Lankans are wise enough to know that over-dependence on a single power would not be good either regionally or globally. And our wish is that since they are such a vibrant democracy, we would like to see them progress economically.
All right, so a period of interesting diplomacy indeed, and an election which is being very closely watched in New Delhi. We're going to leave it there for the moment. Ambassador, thanks very much for joining us as always.